Ethan Carter had always been a man of science. He spent most of his life studying animals, plants, and ecosystems on Earth, but nothing could have prepared him for what he was about to encounter on this barren desert planet. The air was dry, the ground cracked and dusty, and the horizon stretched endlessly under two suns that painted the sky in hues of orange and red. Ethan adjusted the straps of his backpack, feeling the weight of his water supply and research equipment. His mission was simple: document any signs of life in this harsh environment. The planet, designated as X427 by the Interstellar Exploration Team, was supposed to be uninhabited, yet strange energy readings had been detected near a canyon several miles from his landing site. Ethan's curiosity drove him forward, despite the oppressive heat and the eerie silence that surrounded him. As he walked, his boots kicked up small clouds of sand, and the only sound was the faint hum of his suit's cooling system. When he reached the canyon, the landscape shifted dramatically. Jagged rocks jutted out like broken teeth, casting long shadows across the ground. It was here that Ethan noticed something unusual, a faint glow emanating from a crevice between two massive boulders. He hesitated for a moment, his instincts warning him to proceed with caution, but his scientific mind pushed him onward. Whatever it wasn't natural, or at least not anything he'd ever seen before. Climbing over the rocks, Ethan peered into the crevice and froze. There, sprawled across the sandy floor, lay a creature unlike anything he could have imagined. Its body was enormous, easily twice the size of a large elephant, covered in shimmering scales that reflected the sunlight in dazzling patterns. Thin, glowing veins ran along its skin, pulsing weakly with a soft blue light. The creature's eyes were closed, and its breathing was shallow, almost imperceptible. It looked like it was dying. Ethan's heart raced. He didn't know what this creature was or where it came from, but he couldn't just leave it there. Something inside him, perhaps the same part of him that had always cared deeply for living things, compelled him to act. Pulling off his backpack, he rummaged through his supplies. He didn't have much, just some basic medical tools and a few vials of synthetic nutrients designed for human use. Still, he had to try. Kneeling beside the creature, Ethan examined it more closely. The glowing veins seemed to be fading, their light dimming with each passing second. He pressed his hand against its side, feeling the warmth radiating from its body. It was alive, but barely. Without thinking too much about the consequences, Ethan injected one of the nutrient vials directly into the creature's side, hoping it would help stabilize its condition. Then, using a portable scanner from his pack, he analyzed its vital signs. The readings were chaotic, fluctuating wildly, but after a few tense moments, they began to stabilize slightly. Hours passed as Ethan worked tirelessly, administering treatments and monitoring the creature's progress. The suns moved across the sky, casting shifting shadows over the canyon. Ethan's throat was parched and his muscles ached from kneeling on the hard ground, but he refused to give up. Slowly, the creature's breathing became steadier, and the glow of its veins returned brighter than before. It wasn't completely healed, but it was no longer on the verge of death. Just as Ethan leaned back to catch his breath, a low rumble echoed through the canyon. Startled, he turned to see several sleek ships descending from the sky, their metallic surfaces gleaming in the sunlight. They hovered silently above him before touching down gently on the rocky terrain. A group of figures emerged from the largest ship, their tall, slender forms clad in flowing robes adorned with intricate designs. Their skin shimmered faintly, ranging from pale silver to deep violet, and their eyes glowed with an otherworldly intensity. Ethan stood slowly, his hands raised, in a gesture of peace. He didn't know who these beings were, but they clearly weren't human. One of them stepped forward, a woman with regal features and an aura of authority. Her presence commanded attention, and Ethan felt a mix of awe and apprehension as she approached him. "You are the one who saved Xyloth," she said, her voice calm but firm. It wasn't a question. Ethan blinked, unsure how to respond. I don't know what that is," he admitted. "I just saw it, it was hurt, and I tried to help." The woman studied him for a moment, her expression unreadable. Finally, she nodded. You have done something no one else could. For that you have our gratitude." She paused, then added, "And now you must come with us." Before Ethan could protest, the woman gestured, and two of her companions stepped forward to guide him toward the ship. He glanced back at the creature, one he now knew was called Xyloth, and felt a pang of uncertainty. What had he gotten himself into? But there was no turning back now. As the ship lifted off the ground and soared into the sky, Ethan realized his life was about to change in ways he couldn't even begin to imagine. The ship moved smoothly through the sky, its engines almost silent. Ethan sat in a corner of the cabin, his mind racing as he tried to make sense of what was happening. The tall, shimmering figures who had taken him aboard barely spoke. There, glowing eyes watching him with a mix of curiosity and caution. He felt out of place, like a small fish swimming in an ocean far too vast for him to understand. But there was one person who stood apart from the others, the regal woman who had spoken to him back at the canyon. Her name, he learned, was Kayla. Vera. She was the queen of the Zanari people, the beings who now surrounded him. Kayla didn't say much during the flight, but her presence filled the room. She carried herself with quiet confidence, her every movement deliberate and graceful. When the ship finally landed, she motioned for Ethan to follow her. They stepped out onto a platform overlooking a sprawling city, unlike anything Ethan had ever seen. Tall crystalline structures rose into the sky, reflecting the light of the twin suns in dazzling patterns. The streets below were alive with activity, though the people moved with a calm efficiency that seemed almost alien to Ethan. Everything about this place was strange yet beautiful, and he couldn't help but feel both awestruck and overwhelmed. Kayla led him to a grand hall within a towering building. The walls shimmered with intricate designs that seemed to shift and change as Ethan looked at them. In the center of the room stood a large circular table surrounded by chairs. Several Zinari elders were already seated, their expressions stern, as they turned to face Ethan. Kayla took her place at the head of the table and gestured for Ethan to stand beside her. "This is the human who saved Xyloth," Kayla announced, her voice echoing slightly in the vast chamber. "He acted without knowing our laws or customs, yet he did what none of us could." The elders exchanged glances, some nodding while others frowned. One of them, an older man with deep violet skin and piercing golden eyes, leaned forward. "Your Majesty, we are grateful for Xyloth's survival, but this outsider has placed himself in a position we cannot ignore. Our ancient laws are clear. Anyone who saves Xyloth's life must become bound to the royal family." Ethan felt his stomach tighten. "Bound?" he asked, his voice hesitant. "What does that mean?" Kayla turned to him, her expression unreadable. "It means you must serve as my consort. It is not a punishment but a responsibility. You will stand beside me, learn our ways, and help ensure the bond between our people and Xyloth remains strong." Ethan's mind raced. Consort? Serve? These words felt foreign, heavy with implications he wasn't ready to face. "I'm just a biologist," he said, his voice shaking slightly. "I don't know anything about your world or your laws. I only wanted to help that creature. It was dying." "We understand," Kayla replied, her tone softening just a fraction. "But the law is absolute. To defy it would be to risk chaos. Xyloth is sacred to us, and your actions have tied you to our destiny." The elders murmured among themselves, clearly divided. Some seemed to agree with Kayla, while others looked skeptical. One elder, a woman with silvery blue skin, spoke up. "Perhaps there is another way. We could send him away after extracting a vow of secrecy. He need not stay here." "No," Kayla said firmly, cutting off further discussion. "The law exists for a reason. If we bend it now, we weaken everything we hold dear. Ethan Carter has proven himself worthy. He stayed when most would have fled. He risked his own safety for something he did not understand. That is why he must remain." The room fell silent. Ethan felt the weight of their stares pressing down on him. He didn't want to stay. He missed Earth, his research, the familiarity of his old life. But looking at Kayla, he saw something unexpected. Trust. She believed in him, even if he didn't believe in himself. "All right," Ethan said finally, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside him. "If this is what your laws demand, then I'll do it. But I need time to understand all of this, to learn who you are and what's expected of me." Kayla nodded, a hint of relief crossing her features. "You will be given everything you need. My people will teach you our language, our history, and our customs, and I will guide you personally." Over the next few days, Ethan began settling into his new reality. Kayla assigned Lyra, a young Zenari scholar, to tutor him. Lyra was patient and kind, explaining things in simple terms that even Ethan could grasp. Through her, he learned that the Zenari were deeply connected to their environment. Their society revolved around maintaining balance with nature, and Xyloth played a crucial role in that balance. The creature wasn't just a symbol of their culture, it was essential to their survival. Ethan also started attending meetings with Kayla and her council. At first he felt like an outsider, sitting quietly while the Zenari discussed matters that seemed beyond his comprehension. But gradually, he began to pick up on the nuances of their discussions. He noticed how Kayla listened carefully to everyone's opinions before making decisions, how she balanced tradition with innovation. Her leadership style fascinated him, and he found himself admiring her more each day. Despite the progress, not everyone welcomed Ethan's presence. Some Zenari viewed him with suspicion, whispering behind his back about how a human could never truly understand their ways. Others openly criticized Kayla's decision to keep him as her consort, arguing that it undermined the sanctity of their traditions. Ethan heard the rumors and felt the tension, but he refused to let it discourage him. He knew he had a lot to prove, and he was determined to earn their respect. One evening, after a long day of lessons and meetings, Ethan found himself alone with Kayla in a private garden. The air was cool, and the twin moons cast a soft glow over the lush plants surrounding them. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Kayla broke the silence. "You've adapted well," she said, her voice softer than usual. "Not many humans would have handled this situation so calmly." Ethan shrugged, unsure how to respond. "I didn't have much choice, did I?" Kayla smiled faintly. "No, you didn't, but still you've shown courage and humility. Those are qualities we value greatly." "I'm just trying to figure things out," Ethan admitted. "This is all so different from what I'm used to. Sometimes it feels like I'm dreaming." "You're not dreaming," Kayla said. "And either am I. This is real, Ethan. What you've done, for Xyloth, for us, is real. And it matters." Her words resonated with him, planting a seed of hope in his heart. Maybe he didn't belong here yet, but perhaps with time and effort he could find his place. As they stood together under the moons, Ethan realized that this journey was far from over. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he was ready to face them, one step at a time. Ethan's days settled into a rhythm, though it was one filled with challenges. Each morning he woke early to meet Lyra in the library, where she taught him the Zenari language. The sounds were strange at first, soft hums and clicks that seemed impossible for a human tongue to replicate. But with practice, Ethan began to grasp the basics. By the end of each lesson, his throat felt raw, and his mind buzzed with new words and phrases. He practiced them aloud as he walked through the palace corridors, earning curious glances from the Zenari servants who passed by. In the afternoons, Ethan joined Kayla and her council for discussions about the planet's ecosystem and the role Xyloth played in maintaining its balance. At first, these meetings left him feeling out of his depth. The Zenari spoke of energy flows, sacred bonds, and ancient rituals that sounded like poetry to Ethan's ears. But over time, he began to see patterns. He realized that Xyloth wasn't just a creature, it was a living conduit, channeling the planet's natural forces to sustain life. Without it, the delicate harmony of the world would collapse. Kayla noticed Ethan's growing understanding and started including him more in decision-making. She often asked for his thoughts on matters ranging from resource management to cultural preservation. At first, Ethan hesitated, unsure if his opinions held any weight, but Kayla encouraged him, reminding him that his perspective as an outsider could offer fresh insights. Slowly, Ethan found himself contributing ideas, some of which were met with nods of approval from the council. Despite these small victories, not everyone accepted him. Some Zenari still viewed him as an intruder, a reminder of their vulnerability. During meals in the Great Hall, Ethan sometimes caught whispers or felt cold stares from those seated nearby. He tried to ignore them, focusing instead on the friendships he was building. Lyra became a trusted ally, always ready to answer his questions or explain confusing customs. And then there was Kayla, whose presence gave him strength even when she wasn't speaking directly to him. One evening, Kayla invited Ethan to join her for a walk through the royal gardens. The air was cool, and the twin moons bathed the landscape in silver light. Flowers with translucent petals swayed gently in the breeze, releasing faint, sweet scents. As they strolled side by side, Kayla spoke about her responsibilities as queen, being a leader isn't easy, she said, her voice low and thoughtful. Every choice I make affects millions of lives. Sometimes I wonder if I'm doing enough, if I'm making the right decisions. Ethan glanced at her, surprised by her honesty. You seem like you're doing pretty well to me, he replied. The way you listen to people, the care you put into everything, it's inspiring. Kayla smiled faintly. Thank you, but inspiration alone won't save us. There are always challenges, always those who doubt. Even now, some question whether keeping you here was the right decision. Ethan frowned. Do you regret it? No, Kayla said firmly. I believe in our laws, and I believe in you, but leadership means facing criticism, even when you know you're right. They continued walking in silence for a while, the sound of their footsteps blending with the rustle of leaves. Finally, Ethan spoke again. What happens if someone keeps challenging you? What if they don't stop? Kayla stopped and turned to face him, her expression serious. Then we deal with it. Together. Her words stayed with Ethan long after their walk ended. Over the next few days, he noticed subtle changes in the atmosphere around the palace. Whispers grew louder, and some Zenari began avoiding him altogether. It wasn't until a council meeting that Ethan understood why. During the session, one of the elders stood up and addressed Kayla. His name was Torin, and his deep voice carried authority. Your Majesty, we cannot ignore the unrest among our people. Many feel uneasy about the humans' presence. They fear it weakens our traditions. Kayla listened calmly, her hands resting on the table. Torin, I understand their concerns, but the law is clear. Ethan saved Xyloth, and his role as consort is non-negotiable. Torin shook his head. The law was written for Zenari, not humans. Perhaps it is time to reconsider its application. Murmurs spread through the room, and Ethan felt a knot tighten in his stomach. He wanted to defend himself, to argue that he had done nothing wrong, but he knew this was Kayla's battle to fight. The law exists for a reason, Kayla said, her voice firm. It ensures that acts of selflessness are honored and that those who contribute to our survival are recognized. To change it now would be to undermine everything we stand for. Torin didn't back down. And what of unity, Your Majesty? How can we remain united if half our people resent your decision? Kayla leaned forward, her eyes blazing. Unity does not mean ignoring differences. It means finding ways to overcome them. If resentment exists, we address it openly. We do not abandon our principles. The room fell silent. Torin sat down, his expression unreadable. Kayla turned to Ethan, her gaze softening. Ethan, say something. All eyes turned to him. Ethan swallowed hard, aware of the weight of the moment. I didn't ask for this role, he began, his voice steady despite his nerves. But I'm here now and I want to help. I respect your laws and your culture. If staying means proving that I can contribute, then I'll do whatever it takes. His words seemed to resonate. Some of the elders nodded, and a few even offered faint smiles. When the meeting ended, Kayla placed a hand on Ethan's shoulder. Well said, she murmured. As the days passed, Ethan threw himself into his duties. He trained with Kayla's guards, learning basic combat techniques and strategies. He attended ceremonies honoring Xyloth, standing beside Kayla as she performed ancient rituals. He even began helping Lyra catalog plant species in the royal gardens, using his knowledge of biology to identify potential uses for certain flora. Through it all, Ethan felt a growing sense of belonging. The hostility hadn't disappeared entirely, but it had lessened. More Xenari approached him with questions or shared stories about their history. Some even thanked him for saving Xyloth, acknowledging his bravery despite their initial doubts. One night, as Ethan gazed at the twin moons from his balcony, he realized how much he had changed. He missed Earth, yes, but he no longer felt like an outsider here. This place, these people, they had become part of him. And though challenges still lay ahead, he knew he was ready to face them. For the first time since arriving, Ethan felt truly hopeful about the future. Weeks turned into months, and Ethan's life among the Xenari became a blend of routine and discovery. He had grown more confident in his role, though he still felt the weight of expectations pressing down on him. The Xenari were a proud people, deeply connected to their traditions, and Ethan knew he was walking a fine line between respect and adaptation. Every day brought new lessons, new challenges, and new opportunities to prove himself. One morning, as Ethan prepared for another day of training with Kyla's guards, an urgent message reached him. A servant arrived at his quarters, breathless and pale. "Ethan Carter," the servant said, bowing slightly. "You are needed in the council chamber immediately." Confused but alert, Ethan followed the servant through the palace halls. When he entered the chamber, he found Kayla already. Seated at the head of the table, her expression grave. The other council members were gathered around, their faces tense. Lyra stood near the back of the room, clutching a data tablet tightly. "What's going on?" Ethan asked as he took his place beside Kayla. Kayla looked at him, her golden eyes filled with concern. "We have received troubling reports. There is unrest among some factions within our society. They oppose your presence here and believe it threatens the sanctity of our bond with Xyloth." Ethan's stomach tightened. He had known there were doubters, but this sounded more serious. "What kind of unrest?" Torin, the elder who had challenged Kayla before, spoke up. His voice was calm but carried an edge of warning. "There are whispers of rebellion. Some claim that allowing a human to serve as consort weakens our connection to Xyloth. They say your actions disrupted the natural order." Ethan frowned. "I didn't disrupt anything. I saved Xyloth's life. Without me, it might not have survived." "Exactly," Torin countered. "And that is why they see you as a threat. To them, your success proves that we are too reliant on tradition, that outsiders can do what we cannot." Before Ethan could respond, Kayla raised a hand, silencing the room. "Enough. We will not let fear divide us. If there is rebellion, we will face it together. But first, we need to understand their motives." Lyra stepped forward, holding up her tablet. "I've been analyzing communications from the outer regions. There's evidence of coordinated efforts to undermine your authority, Your Majesty. Some groups are spreading false information about Ethan, claiming he manipulated Xyloth's recovery for personal gain." Ethan felt a surge of frustration. "That's ridiculous. I don't even know how I helped Xyloth. I just did what I thought was right." "We know that," Kayla said, her tone firm. "But lies spread quickly, especially when people are afraid. We must act swiftly to prevent this from escalating." Over the next few days, tension mounted throughout the city. Ethan noticed changes in the atmosphere. Guards patrolled more frequently and conversations in the streets grew hushed. Even within the palace, there was a sense of unease. Kayla worked tirelessly, meeting with advisors and preparing defenses, while trying to reassure her people. Ethan did what he could to support her, attending public events and speaking openly about his intentions. Despite their efforts, the situation worsened. One evening, during a celebration honoring Xyloth's renewed vitality, chaos erupted. As Kayla addressed a crowd gathered in the royal courtyard, a loud explosion shook the ground. Smoke billowed into the air and panic spread like wildfire. People screamed and ran in all directions, trampling each other in their desperation to escape. Ethan's instincts kicked in. He scanned the chaos, searching for Kayla. She stood frozen for a moment, staring at the source of the explosion, a group of armed rebels emerging from the shadows. Without hesitation, Ethan rushed toward her, shielding her body with his own, as another blast rocked the area. The force threw them both to the ground, but Ethan managed to cover her, absorbing the brunt of the impact. When the dust settled, Ethan helped Kayla to her feet. Her eyes widened in shock as she looked at him. "You protected me," she said, her voice trembling. "I promised I'd help," Ethan replied, his heart pounding. "Let's get out of here." Together they retreated to safety, where Kayla's guards quickly regrouped and launched a counterattack. The rebels fought fiercely, but the royal forces overwhelmed them, driving them back into the shadows from which they had come. By the time the battle ended, the courtyard was littered with debris and bodies. The celebration had been ruined, replaced by sorrow and anger. In the aftermath, Kayla addressed her people once more, this time with Ethan standing proudly beside her. "Today we faced an attack meant to divide us," she declared, her voice strong despite the pain in her eyes. "But we stood together. Ethan Carter risked his life to protect me, proving that loyalty knows no boundaries. Let this be a reminder. That unity is our greatest strength." The crowd erupted in cheers, many chanting Ethan's name. For the first time, he felt truly accepted. The rebels' attempt to turn the Zenari against him had backfired, strengthening their resolve instead. Determined to uncover the truth behind the attack, Ethan worked closely with Lyra to investigate the rebels' motives. They pored over intercepted messages and traced the origins of the weapons used in the assault. What they discovered shocked them. A rival faction led by a disgraced noble named Valen sought control over Xyloth's power. Believing they could harness its energy for themselves, they viewed Kayla's leadership as an obstacle, and Ethan's presence as a symbol of weakness. With this knowledge, Kayla rallied her forces, preparing for a final confrontation. She sent emissaries to negotiate peace with the rebels, offering forgiveness in exchange for surrender. But Valen refused, vowing to take Xyloth by force if necessary. As the two sides prepared for battle, Ethan trained harder than ever. He practiced combat techniques with Kayla's best warriors, learning how to wield Zenari weapons and strategize effectively. Though he was still an outsider, he refused to let fear hold him back. He knew the stakes were high, not just for him but for the entire Zenari civilization. Finally, the day of reckoning arrived. Kayla led her army to the outskirts of the city, where Valen's forces awaited them near Xyloth's resting grounds. The sacred beast lay motionless in the distance, its glowing veins pulsing faintly, as if aware of the conflict unfolding around it. As the battle began, Ethan fought alongside Kayla, his movements fueled by adrenaline and determination. He clashed with enemy soldiers, using everything he had learned to defend himself and his allies. The fighting was brutal, but Ethan's courage inspired those around him. Slowly, Kayla's forces gained the upper hand, pushing Valen's troops back toward the canyon. In the heat of the battle, Ethan spotted Valen attempting to activate a device near Xyloth. Realizing it was designed to drain the creature's energy, Ethan sprinted toward him, dodging attacks as he went. With a final burst of speed, he tackled Valen to the ground, knocking the device from his hands. The weapon shattered on impact, rendering it useless. Breathing heavily, Ethan glared at Valen. "You'll never touch Xyloth again." Defeated, Valen surrendered and the remaining rebels followed suit. As the dust settled, Kayla approached Ethan, her expression one of gratitude and pride. "You've done it," she said softly. "You've saved us all." Ethan shook his head. "No, we did it. Together." In that moment, Ethan realized something profound. He wasn't just a biologist or a human. He was part of something greater. Through his actions, he had forged bonds stronger than any law or tradition. And though the road ahead would still be challenging, he knew he had finally found where he belonged. The battle was over, and peace slowly returned to the Zenari world. The rebels who had followed Valen were taken into custody, their leader stripped of his title and exiled to a distant region of the planet. Kayla addressed her people once more, this time with a message of unity and forgiveness. She spoke of the importance of learning from mistakes and moving forward together. Her words resonated deeply, and the crowd listened in silence, their faces reflecting a mix of relief and hope. Ethan stood beside her, feeling a sense of accomplishment he had never known before. The journey that began with saving Xyloth had led him to this moment, a place where he was no longer an outsider but a valued member of the Zenari society. He glanced at Kayla, who gave him a small, grateful smile. For the first time, Ethan felt truly at home. In the days that followed, life began to stabilize. The city buzzed with activity as repairs were made to damaged structures and ceremonies were held to honor those who had fought for peace. Ethan played a key role in these efforts, working closely with Kayla and her council to rebuild trust among the people. His actions during the battle had earned him widespread respect, and many Zenari now saw him not as a foreigner, but as a hero. Kayla continued to teach Ethan about her culture, introducing him to traditions he had never imagined. One evening she invited him to participate in a sacred ritual honoring Xyloth. The ceremony took place in a vast clearing surrounded by towering crystals that glowed softly under the twin moons. The Zenari gathered in a circle, their voices rising in harmony as they sang ancient songs of gratitude and reverence. Ethan watched in awe as Kayla stepped forward, placing her hands on Xyloth's shimmering scales. The creature stirred slightly, its glowing veins pulsing brighter as if responding to her touch. Then Kayla motioned for Ethan to join her. Hesitant but determined, he approached Xyloth and placed his hand beside hers. A warm energy flowed through him, filling him with a sense of connection, not just to Xyloth but to everyone present. It was a moment of profound unity, one that solidified his bond with the Zenari people. As weeks passed, Ethan's relationship with Kayla deepened. They spent hours discussing their hopes for the future, sharing stories of their pasts and finding common ground despite their differences. Kayla admired Ethan's humility and determination, while Ethan found inspiration in Kayla's strength and wisdom. Their partnership evolved into something more meaningful, a friendship built on mutual respect and trust. Lyra also became a close companion, often joining Ethan and Kayla for meals or walks through the gardens. Together, they explored ways to strengthen the alliance between humans and the Zenari. Ethan shared knowledge of Earth's ecosystems while Lyra introduced him to plants and technologies unique to their world. Their collaboration sparked ideas for projects that could benefit both civilizations, from sustainable farming techniques to advanced medical treatments. Despite the progress, Ethan still missed Earth. He thought about his family and friends, wondering how they would react if they knew what had become of him. But he also realized that going back wasn't an option, not yet. There was still so much work to be done, so many bridges to build. And though the thought of leaving pained him, he knew his mission here was far from complete. One night, as Ethan gazed at the stars from his balcony, Kayla joined him. "Do you ever think about returning?" she asked, her voice soft. Ethan sighed, looking up at the sky. "Sometimes I miss my old life, my home, but I've found a new purpose here. This is where I'm needed." Kayla nodded, her expression thoughtful. "You've given us so much, Ethan. Your courage has changed our world, and mine, forever." "I didn't do it alone," Ethan replied. "You taught me what it means to lead, to fight for something bigger than myself. I couldn't have done any of this without you." They stood in silence for a moment, the cool breeze brushing against their faces. Finally, Kayla spoke again. "We will find a way to connect our world someday. Not just for you, but for all of us. Imagine what we could achieve together." Ethan smiled, feeling a spark of excitement. "I'd like that." Over time, Ethan's presence became a symbol of cooperation and understanding. Stories of his bravery spread beyond the Zenari capital, reaching remote villages and neighboring tribes. Delegations from other regions arrived to meet him, eager to learn about Earth and its people. Through these interactions, Ethan discovered the true power of empathy, the ability to bridge divides and create lasting bonds. Life wasn't without challenges, Some Zunari still harbored resentment, and there were moments when Ethan doubted whether he truly belonged. But each setback only strengthened his resolve. He reminded himself why he had stayed: to help, to learn, to grow. And with every passing day, he proved that even the most unlikely connections could blossom into something extraordinary. Years later, when Ethan looked back on his journey, he realized how much he had changed. He was no longer the same man who had landed on X-427, unsure of what lay ahead. He had faced fear, doubt, and danger, emerging stronger and wiser. More importantly, he had forged friendships that transcended boundaries, proving that unity was possible, even between worlds. As he stood beside Kayla during a festival celebrating the anniversary of Xyloth's recovery, Ethan felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The Zinari cheered, their laughter and music filling the air. Children ran through the streets waving colorful banners while elders shared tales of hope and resilience. In the distance, Xyloth rested peacefully, its glowing form a testament to the harmony that had been restored. Ethan turned to Kayla, meeting her gaze. "Thank you," he said simply. "For what?" she asked, smiling. "For everything. For believing in me. For showing me that home isn't just a place, it's the people you choose to stand beside." Kayla placed a hand on his shoulder, her eyes shining with pride. "And thank you, Ethan, for reminding us that even in the darkest times light can be found, if we're willing to look for it." Together they watched as fireworks lit up the sky, their colors dancing across the horizon. Ethan knew his journey was far from over, but for now, he was content. He had found his place among the stars, and nothing could take that away from him.